Happy New Year everyone! This is Caroline, and in today's video I want to share 10 cards that I created with the Luxe Paper Block from Action. I received this block as part of a Happy Mail back in October, and between Christmas and New Year I had some time and created 10 cards with it. Now if you're interested and want to see the whole block in detail, you can just click on the link in my description box. I have a video where I show this block in detail. Now let's get started with card number 1. So for card number 1, I went with a white A2 card base and pattern papers and two die cuts from the block. And in addition, I cut out this frame. And I also had those little flowers laying around that I thought would work well with this card. I also have this stamp set from Danny Poys, which is German sentiments. Now, I decided to do my first layer with a piece of glitter paper. This is a piece of non-shed glitter paper in the color rose, and it's perfect, works perfect with this color combo. So then I am taking my pattern paper here and my blending tool and go around the edge with the color, the distress color colored rose, and then another layer, and I chose the color tea dye. So this will give it a very soft vintagey look. Then I have some gold watercolor and I just add some very fine splatters for a little sparkle. Now while this is drying, I am going around and using the leftover ink for the butterfly, and I'm adding a tea dye to my girl here, and I just want to get rid of those white edges. Then I'm assembling my little flowers, and this dye that I used for this was in a previous Spellbinders kit. I don't remember what, probably last year some, or yeah, I think last year's kit. And then I am adding my pattern paper, and I lift this up with foam tape on top of my glitter cardstock here. There, and then I'm adding my frame, and I'm just adding this flat to my background. It's a very romantic look. And then I'm adding those flowers to the bottom of my frame, just in a row for a little bit more embellishing. And I figure out where I want to put my girl, and I lift it up with some foam tape as well. And then I'm stamping out my sentiment, Ich vermisse dich, which is German for I miss you. And I thought this sentiment would work very well with the girl. I stamped this in a brown color, and then I'm going around the edge here with my tool, just picking up some of the leftover ink, and add this also with foam tape to my card. And then the last piece is my little butterfly, and I'm adding it, just add some glue in the middle of it and add this to my top frame. And then for the final embellishing, I'm using some gold glitter Nouveau drops. and some glossy accent for the body of my butterfly and for the little rabbits in this little basket. And here is my finished card. Card number 2. So for card number 2, I decided to do a little bit of mixed media on my background. This is a 7 by 5 inch card that I'm gonna do, and I have this sticky paper from Sizzix, and I'm using this to hold my background in place. Now I'm starting out here and I'm swiping the color Ice Spruce distress ink onto my background just by swiping the whole pad from left to right, and I'm creating kind of a dark edge around my pattern paper here. And then I decided to use a stencil, and this stencil is from Elizabeth's craft design, and I am just using the same color and my brush here and brush the stencil design on top of my inked background. Then I am using the texture paste, and this is the opaque crackle paste from Rangers, and I'm using this and add it on top, the same stencil, on top of my already inked stencil design. This will give it even more texture. Here's the finished design, and now I'm putting this aside and let it dry. And then I decided I want to make this card my focal point of the card, and I want to give it even more contrast and let it stand out more from the background. So I decided to choose a piece of scrapped vellum paper and lay this behind the card, and I'm just adding with the stencil and the same ink the same pattern on it. And here you can see how I want to try to lay this out. And now I'm adding with my brush a little bit of ink around the die cut as well. And then I have this Sizzix double-sided adhesive sheets that I'm going to use to adhere my vellum sentiment onto a piece of dark gray cardstock. It literally makes stickers out of the vellum paper. And then all I need to do is fussy cut this out. Now I'm helping my crackle paste along with my heat tool, and here you can see those little crackles that appear when this crackle paste dries. I'm going around with my rough up tool here and smooth out all the leftover bits of the crackle paste. And then I decided, in order to let that car even more stand out, I will add a piece of white cardstock behind my vellum. So I'm gonna rip my pieces into size, and then I'm adding first my background to my card here. And I cut this background a little bit, about an 1/8 of an inch smaller than my card base, so I have a white border around it. And then I'm adding my 2 pieces here together and add the 2 pieces with a piece of cardstock to lift this up. And then I'm adding my card here on top. And I have a few of pieces from the from the block, from the die cuts sheets, and add a few flowers and a few leaves and greenery to the side of my card. And I'm gonna lift up those little flowers with foam tape. And I also have this little butterfly that I'm adding to the back of my card here. And then I'm adding my sentiment. And I'm also using foam tape for that, and I'm adding this to the top. And for a final touch, I didn't really like those 4 numbers on the back of my card, so I decided to stamp out just a little sentiment, and this is from the tiny words from the Tim Holtz sentiment set. And I stamped out this Own Your Dreams. I embossed it with white embossing powder and adding this on top of the numbers with foam tape. Then I'm using my stickers, and this is the unicorn stickers, and some glossy accent to the wheels of the car, and also those Nuvo drops in this turquoise color for final embellishment. And here is my finished card. Card 3. So for my 3rd card, I decided I'm gonna try a slim card design. I thought that this balloon would work well for that. So I'm cutting away all those stars and all those things around the balloon. I really wanted just the balloon. And I also chose this sentiment from one of the vellum sheets, which says Explore the World. And again, I'm using my Sizzix sheets here, and I'm gluing that sentiment on it to literally make it a sticker. And then I'm just using the other piece of that blue background that was left, and I'm cutting that to size. And since it's not exactly covering my card, I will have an edge on the top, on the bottom. I wanted to add some sparkle to the background, so I am using this icing diamond silver glitter paste. And before I do that, I'm adding a little bit more almost cloudiness with my brush here, with the same color that I used for my other card, the ice spruce. And then I'm using this star stencil here and this glitter paste, and I'm adding this to the top part of my card. So this will give a lot of sparkle to it. And then I am adding my sentiment to a piece of holographic silver cardstock that I have, and then I cut it out, and it will give this whole thing kind of like a shiny finish. It's not holographic anymore, but it has like a matte silvery finish. Very cool. Now I'm adding my background here, and then I am making sure this is all dry. And then I'm using these silver peel-off strips that I have in my stash, and there are from I guess from Lizzie. I'm not sure if they were part of a kit or if I just ordered them by itself. And then I'm adding my balloon, and I'm adding this with foam tape, so lift it off my card. And I have this little cloud that I found in the die cuts, and I'm adding that below my balloon flat, and then I'm adding my sentiment on top, partially of the balloon, bottom of my card here. Then I'm adding those little stars that I cut off before, and other stars that I were just randomly on those die cut sheets, and add them to my card here. And I also add a little balloon, butterfly, and I also found this part here that has 2 balloons on it, and I thought this works very well with my balloon, so I'm adding this to the top behind my balloon, adding some ink to it, and add it behind with foam tape. And I'm sorry, the light was just very bright when I filmed this. So here is another butterfly that I found, and I add another star, and I add another balloon that I found to the right side because I thought it's too empty, and add some glossy accent, and that's the finished card. Card 4. So for my next card here, I used craft card base square, and I used this round die, and this is also an action die that came with my Happy Mail, and I cut this out, and then I'm going around with tea dye around the edge, and I'm adding this piece of pattern paper first as a first layer on my card, and just taped it on. And I'm using this foam dots here, and then I'm adding this frame to my card. This creates kind of a little shadow frame, and you can see, and then I'm adding also a few gold splatters to it. And then I found this a circle that came in the die cuts, and I also have this cute little bunny that holds the balloon. And I'm just going around as I usually do to take off the white edge of the die cuts. And then I have also this border that was a piece of die after die cuts, and I'm just adding this as a piece here so my rabbit can sit on it. And then I add my rabbit or my bunny. Glue this on, and I also have just 2 balloons, and I will add those to the left side of my card. another one, and just glue the ends to the layer here. And then I'm using the same stamp set that I used before, and I'm using this time the word gratuliere, which is kind of like congrats. Now I cut out a little circle with my circle punch, and this will be the perfect size for this stamp. I'm going around with my ink, and then I'm choosing a color, and I choose this vintage photo here, and add this to this little circle, and then I glue it right behind that little rabbit on the bottom right corner of my card. Then I'm using my glossy accent, and I give this balloons some glossy accent that makes it nice and shiny. And also some stickles randomly all around for kind of like a dreamy look. I think that would make a perfect baby card. Here is the finished card. Card 5. So my next card is also a square card, but much bigger. And I have found this cute little die cut with these two bunnies sitting in an umbrella. And I also have this die here from Studio Light. It's just a bunch of hearts background. And I start out by putting a layer of glitter paper and glitter cardstock, and that's kind of like a golding or more like a copper color. And then I have my pattern paper here that I cut to size, and I am using this set of watercolors, which is also from Action, and I'm adding some of this red or orangey reddish color and also gold splatters to my background. And I'm helping this along to dry with my heat tool. And I am also go around the edge with the Distress Ink tea dye. And then I'm adding this with foam tape to on the top of my glitter paper here. Then I'm adding this die cut here to the back, and I cut this out in kind of like a pearl rose color, which match perfectly. And then I'm lifting up this die cut, and I'm using this little lock that came on one of the sheets, and I used that one and put it around the umbrella. I thought it's just cute. And adding those little bits here for the top of my umbrella handle. Stick this in place, and then I'm also adding glue to my lock here and add that into place. Then I'm adding some of the heart, well, that's the heart from the die cut sheet, and then this is just falls out with the die that I cut out. And then I have this You and Me that's I cut out from one of the vellum papers, and again I'm using my sticky Sizzix sheets here and add this as a sticker, or make it a sticker, and then I cut those out and place them on my card. Also use this little heart here and this with foam tape to the top. And then I'm just pulling away the sheet on the back and add my vellum to my background here. Then I'm stamping out this love you from this stamp is coming from that same Tim Holtz Tiny Words stamp set, and add this to the heart. And then for this card I'm using the Dream Drops Nouveau in the color Love Potion, which is a very nice pink rosé color. And then for the final touch I'm adding some glossy accent to the lock and to the eyes of the bunnies and the little flowers. And for the handle of my umbrella here. And then I'm adding also some stickers to the little flowers on the bunny's hair. And then I have my Wing Stellar glitter pen here, and I'm just adding this to the umbrella. And here's the finished card. Card 6. So for my next card, it's an A2 card, and I cut out the background with one of my spellbinders frame dies, which has this nice edge to it. It almost looks like a doily edge. And then I'm adding some light gold sparkles to it by splattering this color all over, watercolor. And then I'm adding the words with love again to a piece of cardstock, and I choose a bunch of flowers and this bucket here or barrel with the flowers on top, and I'm smoothing out the little nips that sometimes are left on my dies here, die cuts, when you pull it out of the block. And I'm going around with some ice spruce and some green color for my greenery here, and just getting rid of those white edges. Now assembling my card. That's a pretty easy card. I'm just lifting my background up with some foam tape. And it's very nice how you can see the white background through this pattern paper. And then I'm assembling my card, and I'm just gonna make an arrangement of flowers here. And I'm lifting some up with some foam tape. Just making this nice and even, and then I'm adding the greenery to it for some contrast color. And I put it in place. And I also found this little bow, which I thought looks nice as an embellishment on top. And I'm just screwing the edges on so it doesn't stick up too much. Then I'm cutting out my sentiment and add some foam tape. And I'm gonna stick this into place on top of the barrel. and I also add some stickers to the centers of the flowers. And I'm adding glossy accent to the metal rim of my barrel here. Then I'm using again my glitter pen here and adding glitter to the bow. And here's my finished card. Card 7. So I decided to go again with a slim size card, and for this card I decided to go and create my own background. So I chose my Ecoline watercolors, liquid watercolors, and I'm choosing the lemon yellow and the turquoise blue. And I'm adding the blue on the bottom, the yellow on the top, and a little bit of yellow right where the blue is to make it a more greenish turquoise color. Then I'm using some cling wrap and I just smoosh this color, mix it up to make it a gradient. And then I'm gonna dry this. And I'm using the same cling wrap again and had still color on it, and I'm adding this again for a second layer. And then I decided that I wanted to warm up the top part. It is a very bright yellow, so I'm adding some cosmic shimmer powder in the color copper. And on the bottom I just added some turquoise color for some shine, and I also add this Nouveau shimmer powder in, I think it's Sunburst, to the top. This will warm up the yellow. And I also have a darker blue on the bottom then. There. Just picking up the leftover water with a paper towel. And then I'm just gonna use my heat tool and I just gonna dry this. And you can see how the shimmer powder gives some shimmer to the card. Then I want to add some white back into this for a more cloudy look. So I'm just using kind of this sponge tool here, this wedge sponge tool, and I'm adding some white ink from my ink pad. So I want it to look almost like a sky. And then I cut this to size. And I'm adding with gray dark border around it for more contrast. And then I'm using this cute mouse hanging on the balloon die cut, and straighten out the nips here. And then I'm adding my background to my card. And this time I cut it a little bit smaller, so you have a white border on the right and on the left side of the card. Then I'm adding my mouse with foam tape to the top of my card. And I found this cute sentiment, never grow up, and from the vellum sheets, and I cut this out and again make it a sticker. And then I'm using some white ink here, and I added some white splatters. I just wanted to give this texture more, this background more texture. Then I'm cutting out my sentiment and I glue this onto holographic gold, frame this onto holographic gold cardstock and glue those words with foam tape on top. And I also had this heart here that I found, and I'm adding this kind of behind the mouse and the other heart here. And then I have again this Tim Holtz Tiny Words stem set, and it has this cute sentiment. It says never stop exploring, and I thought that works perfect with this card. So I think this would make a beautiful birthday card for a kid or even adult. So adding some gold glitter drops, and then again my glossy accent for the balloon, and then I'm adding with and this is just a frosted glitters. I'm adding almost like a swirl of little dots around the card, so it looks like there's some movement to that mouse flying up. And here's the finished card. Card 8. So for this card I decided to go with an A2 card base, and I cut out a piece of holographic cardstock in rose gold, and I also cut out this piece of vellum with my Daisy May round circle dies, and then a piece of pattern paper, and I choose the piece from the pattern paper on the bottom right, so I would have those little flowers or greeneries on my layer here. Then I'm adding tea dye on the bottom, and I'm adding also some splatters, and I'm adding the ink on the bottom to give my die cut, which is this bunny driving the scooter, something to stand on to ground it. Now I'm adding this holographic cardstock, and this is, by the way, also cardstock from Action that I got gifted from my sister, and it's a very cool cardstock. Now I'm adding my pattern paper here, and I'm also adding this little bunny just flat to my piece of vellum. And then I am adding some foam tape and add this to my card here. And then I found this little balloon die cut, and I tried, well actually I thought it looks nice adding this to the back of the scooter here. And I'm adding a little bit of foam tape to the balloon, glue this down, and then I'm adding my happy birthday sentiment that comes from a Spellbinders die set to the top of my card here. And then for this one I'm using another one of my Nuvo Dream Drops, and this is just a white color. And then I'm adding, of course, my glossy accent to the balloon and also to the little wheels of the scooter. Final touch, I'm adding some glitter drops or glitter stickles to the bottom of the skirt. And here is the finished card. Card 9. So for my next card here, I'm using my favorite things, rectangle dies and one of my Daisy Maze label dies. And I cut out a piece of pearl mint color cardstock and also a piece of pattern paper, and choose the few die cuts from the block. And I thought I'm adding a little bit more texture to this pearl color cardstock. Just wanted to try something here, how that would look, and I thought it turned out well, just to add some ink to it. And then I'm adding also some watercolor splatters in green this time, and in this reddish orangey color. And I also decided to add pearls, sparkles, by splattering some pearl watercolor to it. Now here's that die cut I want to use for my card, and again I'm cleaning this up a little bit, adding or cutting away bits and pieces that I don't want, and I'm going around with my blending tool and adding some ink. And I also found this bow that I wanted to use, and for this bow I add a foam dot and then just adding it to my balloon, and I cut away the inside of the bow. Then in the die cut came also this sentiment, "You are loved," and I decided I want to use this, and I just framed this on a piece of white cardstock. Now I'm drying all this, and I think it looks very cool how the watercolor and the ink create texture on this pearl cardstock. I'm adding this first, and then I'm going around with the mint colored ink here, and I'm adding this to my base here, and using foam tape for that to lift it up. And then I'm adding the little balloon in the middle, and I'm adding one of the hearts to my little sentiment, and add this also with foam tape to the top of the balloon, and that little heart to the bottom right. And then I'm adding some glitter drops in gold, and of course my glossy accent to the little hearts. And here is the finished card. Card 10. So for card 10, it's gonna be a very little small card. It's a square that I cut to size, and I'm using this die here from Action, and I'm also using this nested die here, circle die, and cut out 2 pieces of pattern paper. And then I chose 3 oxide distress inks. These are the spun sugar, 1 lipstick, and then this peel paint. And I'm going around the first layer, the square, just with the spun sugar, and then I'm adding the darker color also to the 2 circles here. So it's gonna have some contrast. Then I'm adding some brown color to my little hedgehog, and to the barrel here, or the bucket, and then some green to the little grass pieces here. And then I found this cluster of flowers, which I'm gonna cut apart. And I also have this little heart that I found. So I'm adding my first layer here, just flat. And then I'm adding the circle, the larger circles with foam tape. And then I'm adding the next layer also with foam tape. And then I'm adding the barrel, and I'm double layering the foam tape on the bottom so it's even with the top of my circle here. And then I'm adding my little hedgehog in the middle of the bucket, and the grass to the right and to the left of the bucket with foam tape. And then I'm adding those little flowers right into the left of the little hedgehog in the bucket. And this little heart goes just to the left of the hedgehog. Now for my sentiment, I really thought it would be a nice get well, feel better card. Just a little card that you can send to somebody to make them feel better. And I actually stamped this on a piece of vellum and add some copper colored embossing powder to it. And then I'm using just a little bit of glue, liquid glue, and add this to a piece of white cardstock. And that's the way you can do it if you don't have the Sizzix or the adhesive sheets. Now I'm adding a double layer of foam tape to make it even with the top of my circle here, and add this to the top of the little hedgehog. There. Now I'm adding just some glossy accent to the hedgehog's nose, and then to the heart and to the little rim here of the barrel, and some gold nouveau drops to the little flowers, and adding a little bit of glue here to keep that flower in place. And here's that little teeny tiny card. Now I have a little bonus card here. I just thought I show this also. This is a card. I chose a pink card base, and I cut out 2 rectangles with my favorite things dies and a couple of die cuts, and I have also a sentiment from the vellum sheets. Now I have this matte metallic cardstock that I use as my first base, and then I have this cute bunny sitting and reading a book, and I cut this from the pattern papers, and I'm adding my sentiment again to the adhesive sheets, and then I'm using this is the weathered wood color, kind of like blue grayish color, and I'm carefully adding this to the edge of my pieces here. And then I am adding this piece with the suitcases and the flowers on the edge, and then I'm going around and darken the edge of this piece, this layer. And I also added this garland here with the flags to the top. And then I'm adding because it's exactly the same bunny, I am just adding it on top with some foam tape. But first I add this layer to my card, and then I'm adding this right on top of this other bunny and on top of the suitcases, so it looks like the bunny sits against those suitcases. Now I'm adding this little balloon and stick this behind the bunny here, and then I'm gluing on the vellum directly to my card. And I also used one of the tiny words from the Tim Holtz set, and this one says light the way, so it says you can light the way. kind of a positive sentiment here. Glue this flat on and using my glossy accent and just add this to the dots on the balloon, and I'm adding some dream drops to it, and here is the finished card. So, and here are all the cards again, close up. I hope you like this video and you found some inspiration. If you have this block, it's awesome to work with. You can create so many different cards. I still have so many leftover die cuts. I could probably create another 10 cards. But after 10 cards, I have to say I'm getting tired of a block, so I'm putting the stuff away, and maybe another time I pick it up again. So yeah, so I hope you found some inspiration, and if you don't have this block, just maybe you have some ideas what you could do, what techniques to use, and just go in your stash and find something and get crafty. So here's that card again with the mouse. Yeah, so I hope you're gonna have a great week, and I see you in my next video. Until then, bye. Stay safe. Bye.